Hi everybody. I think this is like my ninth take. I'm really bad at this because I keep looking at the numbers, but the lens is down there, and so if I'm looking up here, it looks like I'm just talking past the camera. Harrison Ford doesn't look right in the lens when he's filming. Kate Blanchett, I don't think I've ever seen her look at the lens. David Attenborough, he's mostly just a voice, so maybe I should look up there. I don't know. My neighbors are probably wondering what I'm doing in my workshop, talking to my workbench. But you know what? I like my workbench and we're very close. Hi everybody, long time no see. It's been a couple years since we've done a video, and we're okay with that. We make them when we like making them. The audience for these videos is primarily ourselves and our children and our grandchildren. We don't have any kids yet, nor do we have grandchildren yet, obviously. But when we do, we'd like to show them that mom and dad were once pretty cool. Our first videos are not very good, and we know that. All the videos, though, are a little bit overly dramatic. The camera shakes more often than it's still. We only learned like halfway through the second video that we had a focus button. So there's an awful lot of like things that we're learning as we go. But that's life. It's about not knowing stuff and then learning stuff. And to be honest with you, that's this whole adventure mindset that we have is let's try something new and exciting and see how it goes. But one of the things I've noticed is that our first video is terrible and our third video is slightly less terrible. So we're making progress and we're learning as we go. Today's video is a little bit different. This week we had to say goodbye to something very close to us, so close it became a someone. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you don't, that's okay. There's plenty of other YouTube for you to watch. Today's video is a celebration of some of the adventures we've had in the past and the introduction of the next chapter of this crazy life that we have far too little of. So I hope you enjoy, and thanks for watching. Today's story starts in Toledo, Ohio in the fall of 2012. If you've been before, please tell us about it because we haven't. Google tells us that it was unseasonably warm or unseasonably cold, depending on the website you look at for that time of year. But what we do know is that on a fall day in 2012, a whole bunch of Toledans, if that's how you say that, woke up extra early and showed up here for work. Inside this massive complex, parts and pieces from all over the world come together and create something whose pedigree goes back to World War II. The Willys Jeep earned its reputation in battlefields from Bastogne to Guadalcanal, and the love of the Jeep followed American servicemen home after the war. The Jeep attracted property owners, farmers, ranchers, and gearheads of all kinds, and its 4x4 credentials and reputation for nimble ruggedness made it the vehicle of choice for adventurers. Adventurers like Mark Smith, who picked the Jeep when he led an expedition from Argentina to Prudhoe Bay, including crossing the Darien Gap. I was just driving home from work and I was thinking more about this Darien Gap thing, and I want to highlight just how difficult this trip was. So as much as Mark Smith was one of the first to do it in his Jeep, it was also done by the British Army. It took them 100 days and they lost 8 guys in their attempt. Both those groups also had a little bit of help. So both Mark Smith and the British Army did travel much of the gap by boat. So anywhere there was a river they could use to assist them, they would use it. The first overland travel was by a couple named Lauren Upton and Patty Mercer. And again, I want to highlight how difficult this gap is. It's only 200 kilometers, but it took Lauren and Patty 700 days to go across it. Imagine it taking 2 years to get from here to Red Deer, and that's pretty much what you have in this Darien Gap. Of course, Lauren and Patty, they did it in a Jeep. To clarify just a couple of things, Lauren and Patty did this in 1985. They did it in a CJ. Now, regardless of the specific details of those Jeeps that we're talking about, the fact remains that this adventure DNA goes into every Jeep ever made, going right back to World War II. In fact, that's what those Toledans were doing that day in 2012. They were bolting and clipping and attaching all the bits and pieces to a 2013 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. Now, the Rubicon comes with some pretty fancy pieces like off-road suspension, sway bar disconnects, locking differentials, and if you don't know why that's important, don't worry, we'll explain that in another video. Now, here in Edmonton, there was a newlywed couple that had just finished a year of adventures in a 2-door Jeep, which proved to be a little bit too small for the two of them and their German Shepherd, and so they decided to upgrade. And upgrade they did. It almost didn't happen though, because they had to threaten to walk out of the dealership twice to get them to come down on the price. But eventually the deal was done, and this couple had a new adventure vehicle. So this couple was in kind of a unique position with their German Shepherd Addie. The husband, which is me if you haven't figured that out yet, worked at a university. But in particular, I worked in residence life at this university, which means that I lived in the residence halls with the students. What that meant was nothing was really ours. The walls were bare, we didn't have a ton of photos up, and we didn't have our own space, and it always was surrounded by work stuff, so it never really felt like home. But that Jeep did. As the years went on, our situation changed. We bought a house, got a second dog, we both got new jobs along the way, but the adventure continued any chance we got. On all those adventures, the Jeep served many purposes. It was an ambulance, not just for animals, but for people too. We used it as our home and our home gym. It was an office and a laundry room. It was a cargo vehicle, and it was a front patio. But most of all, it let us see the world in the way that we wanted to see it, and it really opened up a lot of adventures for us. Alas, it wasn't all good. Within the first 20,000 kilometers, Ruby needed major surgery due to failed bearings in the clutch. Not long after, the starter motor gave out for the first time. On an annual basis, the oil pressure sensor would give up the ghost, requiring the top of the engine to come right off.
Hey Craig, where does that part go?
I have no idea. As a young married couple, we simply didn't have the resources to pay someone else to do this stuff for us, so we ended up learning a lot of it through YouTube and countless phone calls home to my dad for advice. We always managed to get Ruby back together without any parts left over. We weren't always working on Ruby just to fix things that were broken. Sometimes we do it to improve the things that we already had. For example, we added a custom rear tire carrier and bumper. We also added a hot water system so we could have showers when we got into camp. In fact, if it was just a maintenance problem, we probably would have kept Ruby forever. However, the Jeep has one fatal flaw. Its payload capacity is limited to 800 pounds. Once you add a roof rack and the tent and all the different accessories we have, plus our camping gear, and then our dogs and us, it's simply overweight by a significant margin. Do you mind telling the viewers exactly what we're doing today?
We're weighing everything, seeing what we need, we don't need, and where we can save some weight.
Try as we might, we simply couldn't get Ruby's weight down to a reasonable level and still maintain the comfort level that we've come to get used to on these big trips. We tried lighter gear, we tried less gear, but ultimately we came to the difficult decision to say goodbye.
So we're just in the process of removing the bits and pieces from Ruby that we want to keep, because tomorrow we're going to go test driving a new truck, and we think we're probably going to come home with a new truck.
How are you feeling right now?
Very emotional about it, much more than I thought I would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been emotionally attached to a vehicle before, but it's amazing once you do a bunch of stuff, cool stuff with your vehicle, it kind of becomes a member of the family.
If it seems a bit silly to get emotional or to even do a tribute video like this over a vehicle, you have to understand that it was much more than a vehicle for us. It was our home. It was our first taste of independence that we built together. While we both had an adventurous spirit before we met, Ruby helped cement that together. Without Ruby, we never would have gone to Alaska, and we would never have the confidence to plan a trip down to Argentina. Wherever we end up in our lives, Ruby helped take us there, or at least start us on the path. And of course, you can tell by the way we're talking, this isn't the end for us. It's not the end for Ruby either. We have it on good authority that Ruby was auctioned off to another family who will hopefully have many more adventures in her. And as for us, well, we have someone very special we'd like to introduce you to. World Meet Pachyderm, or PAC for short. PAC is a 2017 GMC Canyon, and we're very much looking forward to having just as many adventures with PAC as we did with Ruby. And in fact, we've already had a few, but to see those ones you're going to have to wait for future videos. So until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll keep chasing our trunks.